Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping news tonight. Government hopes to safely reopen the country's borders for commercial travel on or before July 1st. That coming from Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis today during a national address. This as he also unveiled a domestic travel program which would allow for Family Island residents to return home. As the country continues to make progress in containing the spread of COVID-19, the Prime Minister revealing today a possible date for the resumption of commercial travel.
As of now, we are looking at a possible opening date for commercial travel on or before July 1st of this year. These dates may change depending on the circumstances.
In fact, government along with resorts, airports and seaports are already finalizing health and safety protocols for the possible reopening. And as government begins the gradual reopening of inter-island travel, there will be new protocol. Travelers will have to register with the Ministry of Health and undergo an evaluation by an authorized physician. The evaluation will include a risk assessment to determine the individual's level of risk for COVID-19.
If deemed low risk and the physical exam does not reveal any symptoms, it is expected that the person will be issued a COVID-19 travel authorization card that will allow individuals to travel to the Family Island. If the individual is deemed a higher risk or has symptoms that may be consistent with COVID-19, the individual will be referred for testing to definitively determine their COVID-19 status.
Under the first phase of the program, residents of cleared Family Islands who are stuck in New Providence or Grand Bahama can begin applying for their COVID-19 travel card on Wednesday, May 20th. The Prime Minister added that residents on COVID-19 free islands may travel between those islands without an approval card. Meantime, Cat Island, Long Island, Abaco and Andros have been given the all-clear to resume commercial activity beginning tomorrow.
Let me emphasize to all Family Islands that are able to resume commercial activity that weekday curfews and weekend lockdown measures still remain in place, as do physical distancing measures and the requirements to wear facial masks.
Also during his national address, the Prime Minister announcing that repatriation flights for Bahamians stuck abroad will resume this week with 2 flights, one on Thursday and one on Saturday from Fort Lauderdale. Dr. Minnis assured that the system has been streamlined.
Passengers will be required to present the COVID-19 negative test results to a Bahamas Air agent before being allowed to board the aircraft. A representative of the Council will be present who will validate the COVID test result.
Home and hardware stores will now be allowed to operate in-store hours on Mondays from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to facilitate hurricane preparedness. Construction companies on New Providence and Grand Bahama can now operate on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and the operating hours for pharmacies have been extended to 5 p.m. Monday through Fridays and now Saturdays, but for essential workers only. Exercise restrictions have been loosened to include weekends from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. in your immediate neighborhood. Meantime, Bimini begins a complete 2-week lockdown tomorrow. Prime Minister Minnis again reiterating the need for the lockdown to slow and control the community spread of COVID-19. He reassured that island's residents that there will be sufficient food and supplies.
Groceries and supplies arrived in Bimini over the weekend by boat to restock food stores in advance of the lockdown. The Department of Social Services distributed 600 food vouchers on Friday past to ensure residents in need had the necessary resources to purchase food before Monday. The government's National Food Distribution Task Force has also coordinated the delivery of 100 food packages through the Bahamas Feeding Network to Bimini.
Now, a team of 12 volunteers will assist the island administrator with checking in and assessing residents in need of assistance.
The Royal Bahamas Police Force has agreed to provide escort service for the administrator and her team as needed. Boats carrying foods and supplies will also be allowed to call on Bimini during the lockdown period to ensure food stores are restocked after the lockdown ends. I had communicated this morning with the island's administrator, Ms. Pinder, who has assured me that the island is doing well.
Pan American Health Organization representative for the Bahamas, Dr. Esther de Gorville, is calling local health officials COVID-19 testing strategy necessary given the global demand for the highly sought-after tests.
The strategy in the Bahamas is to give highest priority to testing persons who are symptomatic. And this testing priority is necessary because internationally, the logistic support for testing is problematic. There are simply not enough test kits available in enough numbers to be distributed internationally. And even if they were, it's difficult for people to ship materials into countries because many countries have closed their borders.
Since the country's first case of COVID-19 was confirmed in mid-March, health officials have said testing on demand remains challenged due to limitations in the international supply chain on specific testing items such as swabs and RT-PCR test kits. Health officials have repeatedly expressed the need for expanded testing capacity to curb the spread of the virus and prevent further loss of life. As of Saturday, nearly 1,800 tests have been conducted. Well, as Bimini residents prepare for a 2-week lockdown starting tomorrow, those on the island are scrambling to quickly get the basic necessities. Our Julian Gray reports.
At 9 p.m. on Monday, Bimini residents will be under a mandatory 2-week lockdown. While many embrace the move, this resident said action should have been taken long ago.
From the first confirmed case on the island, there should have been an aggressive approach as it relates to stopping the spread of the virus because Bimini is small and one case is just one case too many.
Last week, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced the lockdown as a measure to stop the spread of the coronavirus on the island, adding that the lockdown may be extended for a total of 14 days after the May 30th end date. Bimini has been considered a hotspot, and resident Keisha Russell said everyone on the island is now taking the matter very seriously.
The general mood on the island, I wouldn't say a panic, but more or less now taking it serious because of the mandatory lockdown for the 2 weeks. Persons are out and about trying to get the necessary food items that will secure them for the length of time that we will be shut in. And so right now I would just admonish, the residents to take this very serious and to know that when they stay at home, they're not only saving their lives, but they're saving others' lives as well, and it is my prayer that we all remain safe during these times.
The acting health minister said various measures are being taken to ensure residents have access to food and medicine. However, many residents agree that it should not only be left to the government to provide help, but the community should begin to come together. Assistant pastor of Gateway Outreach Ministries, Gilbert Roll Jr., said both in Bimini and around the Bahamas, churches have collected funds for years, and now it's time to give back.
A lot of persons have been sowing for years, and so this is the time now where it's not going to last forever. It's just this season. And so during this time, this is the time for us, the church, to lend support to its people and to help communities and to help persons to get through this time because, it may not get back to normal, but eventually things will turn around. Persons will start working again. And so it's a time to sow and this is a time to reap. And so from the church standpoint, I believe that this is a time for us to lend support to those who are in need at this time.
With debate growing on whether churches should reopen, Roll said ministries should realize the unique opportunity the lockdown presents for the church to reach people. He added that hopefully during this 2-week lockdown, those on Bimini will really come to know God.
God has opened up a door in terms of social media and also Zoom. And, this is the best reach that the church has had, even when the church was open. So I believe that in the midst of it, that God is working, God is working. And I believe that throughout it, he's going to continue to work, and men are coming to themselves and reevaluating their lives and making changes. And so during this time, we're going to embrace it, what God is doing and what he's allowing. And hopefully that these 2 weeks can be life-changing for some people.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, still ahead tonight, hear about plans for a groundbreaking Junkanoo museum at the new cruise port. Plus, Grey Cliff teams up with community partners to feed thousands. Those stories and more coming up. Next tonight, when the new Nassau cruise port opens, it's expected to put Bahamian culture on full display. A major aspect, a Junkanoo museum. Our Kyle Joaquin spoke with one of the consultants about plans to bring it all to life.
It's perhaps the truest expression of Bahamian culture. Junkanoo for years has put a beat in Bahamians' hearts and has been dubbed one of the greatest shows on earth. And in just a matter of months, the part of downtown Nassau we've come to know as Festival Place will be no more. And from the dust will emerge a Junkanoo Museum, a part of the new Nassau Cruise Port.
It's a very exciting prospect to have finally, after all these years, this dream come true for so many people, that there will be a Junkanoo presence permanently on the dock as our visitors disembark.
For now, Festival Place remains closed. When it's opened, the vibrant colors of the little structures in the area bring it to life. But all of it will transform into an expression of true Bahamian culture through Junkanoo, according to Arlene Nash-Ferguson, a consultant on the project.
What this new development will do is seal it. When we think Opera House, we think Sydney Harbour. And when we see this unfolding, people will be able to say, out of all of the different ports, down through the Caribbean and indeed around the world, that's Nassau.
Nash-Ferguson has been a staple within the Bahamas' culture industry for years, and even an educator, serving as the principal of St. John's College for decades. She said there's a brilliance about Junkanoo that she can't wait to see come alive once the museum is completed and opened.
It's the magnificence that we see, particularly on Bay Street on a Boxing Day morning or a New Year's morning. That brilliance, that genius was created by ordinary, average Bahamians like you and like me. And we can never tell their story without them. And so it is extremely important that the Junkanoo community will be involved, that they will embrace it and feel this is ours.
She said what she hopes would happen is that the winning costumes and banners from the Junkanoo parades each year would be housed in the museum, rather than being left on the side of the road or recycled. The new cruise port is set to open in spring 2022 with state-of-the-art facilities.
And so we are grateful that we will be front and center as the years unfold, and as visitors visit the Bahamas in the future, they will know, hey, this is not just another island, this is not just another country, this is the Bahamas.
For Our News Weekend, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
All right, thanks a lot, Kyle. When Our News, the weekend edition, comes back from the break, we tell you about Grey Cliff's new pop-up feeding program. And later, we take a look at the most memorable quotes of the week. So stay tuned. Welcome back to our news, the weekend edition. Graycliff Restaurant has partnered with Central Supercenter, One Eleuthera, and Better Homes Real Estate to feed thousands of people. Hundreds lined up on Friday for hot meals. Our Bethany McDormand has the details.
Lines outside Graycliff Restaurant stretch from the entrance down to Shirley Street as residents lined up for a hot plate of food and a cold drink. Graycliff co-owner Roberta Garzaroli explained that the initiative is one way for them to give back to the community during these difficult times.
It has been overwhelming. I mean, we've had people call all week to come to find out when can I come get the food. Last week we had people coming up to 8 o'clock at night. I was like, please go home before lockdown so you don't get arrested. We'll be here every Friday as long as we can. Donations can be made through the One Eleuthera Foundation donation page.
Garzaroli explained that residents would drive up to the first tent to collect a cold drink, then to the next tent to collect a plate of food. She also gave us a look at what's inside the plates.
Basically, people can get a drink, either water or soda, and then a hot meal. And it's pasta with vegetables and chicken.
Families were also able to walk up and collect meals and drinks. CEO of Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, Mario Carey, said the initiative will be extended through June if needed.
If it needs to go past May, we'll determine that as people need food. And again, as long as we can encourage volunteers to help. Like right now, we need to go and deliver to Unity House. That's the old age home. So we're serving all of the kids' hostels, 165 children, all of the old age homes, churches. But again, remember I said it's about 2,000 people we're feeding today.
President of Central Supercenter, KK Tong, stressed the need for more feeding programs.
You can't do it on your own. Definitely you need to partner up with strong partners who are like-minded, who love the community, and who's able to put something like this together in a smooth way and impact many persons and to help them.
Residents we spoke to were grateful for the kind gesture.
It's good what they do and giving back to the people. It's very excellent. People come here and they spend a lot of money, so it's good what the boss do. And he say he didn't do it only for the poor.
I always like Graycliff, but I think it's good. So this is a good treat for people today.
I know Graycliff is like this. I know it's an expensive, exclusive restaurant, but they doing things. Thumbs up.
The goal is to host the drive every Friday in May. Last week, they served 1,200 people. Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Find out the most memorable quotes of the week. That's coming up when our news, the weekend edition, returns. Some members of our men's national water polo team will be headed off to college this fall. Our Marcellus Hall tells us a bit more.
From humble beginnings often come great things. The Bahamas water polo program has started out humbly, but since then has gone on to a number of great accomplishments, the latest of which is getting a number of athletes now headed to university on scholarships. The Bahamas water polo program has seen its ups and downs during the course of since its inception. However, they have seen more ups as of late. Gabriel Sastry becomes the latest now to benefit from the program as he commits to Division I Wagner College. The under-18 water polo team captain says he's very happy to have the opportunity.
I'm just forever grateful for everything, for our coaches, for my family and friends, for the Ministry of Sports and Culture, for the Bahamas Aquatics, even for the Prime Minister for that, and let's be able to go back and train so we can be at the best of our abilities. Wagner, when they recruited me, I was at the Junior Olympics playing with Houston Storm with Coach Edwin in California, and I got contacted from the coaches at Wagner College, and they were like, hey, we're interested, and we want to meet you and see how that goes. And eventually I went to go and visit, and that made history from then.
Now, Sastry goes on to thank a number of people who are responsible for the success. He says this program has done great things along the way.
All started from, practicing and going to, Florida, around the world, to be honest, with tournaments and building up our experience, and then being able to go and travel to Carifta, to Trinidad and Jamaica and Barbados, and then going over to Sisican, to Trinidad once again, and Barbados, and then eventually, recently, we went to our first ever Pan American Games. I mean, that's incredible, being able to perform at such a high level, and you never know what's next.
Now, the head coach of the Bahamas Water Polo program is Coach Lottie. He's put a lot of work in and says he's happy for the 3 athletes that have gotten scholarships, and he hopes that many more will be behind them as the year continues to go on.
Last year we already have Sekwa Miller, who made it to the Salem University, and we have Jonathan Demerit, who is in an American school. And now this year I have Gabriel Sasre, Alec Turnquist, and Nicholas Wallace-Whitfield, who were recruited by colleges in the United States. As Gabi says, they were recruited in California in a tournament. So all that work, all that relationship, all that networking, all that traveling, what we did to expose these players to a higher level of water polo is now paying off.
Now, while Sastry is the first to get a Division I scholarship, he's not the only one to have benefited from this program in terms of being able to continue their education collegiately. Head coach Lottie, very happy about that, and is looking forward to many more opportunities as time goes on.
There's a great opportunity here to approach colleges for water polo scholarship. Obviously, when I started to recruit players from schools like QC and Trinity and Windsor and Lyford Key and all the other schools, St. Augustus, I never thought of that yet. But in my mind, I always wanted to have exceptional water polo, and I always wanted to establish a so-called Bahamian or Caribbean water polo. So when these guys shows up, and the next generation next year shows up at colleges, they already know, these guys from that Bahamian school, they in.
So, of course, we will continue to watch these athletes progress as they head onto their college endeavors. Hopefully, things will go well. For our news, I'm Marcellus Hall.
Well, finally, tonight it's that time when we take a look back at the most memorable quotes of the week in news. Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar dismissed calls for his resignation following the controversy that saw former Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands tender his resignation. His comments come in at number 3.
I think, honestly, enough has been said about this. I think it's been ventilated. I think the Prime Minister has spoken to it. I think Dr. Sands has spoken to it. I don't think I did anything wrong, and I've moved on. I think we should all do the same.
Then there's this gem from the singing bishop, Lawrence Roll. His comments take the number 2 spot.
But girl, let me tell you, everybody, man, woman, boy in Nassau got skeleton. And if somebody would pull some of them skeleton out by the head or the leg, we all will be in trouble.
Thank you.
I ain't gonna tell you no lie, I got couple. I got so much skeleton, I stop counting. That's why I gotta keep on praying. I gotta look down on you.
But the order by Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis to lock down Bimini for 2 weeks due to an increase in the number of cases on that tiny island takes the number 1 spot for quote of the week.
Bimini will be placed on a 2-week lockdown in order to slow and control the community spread of the COVID-19 virus on this island.
Well, that does it for our quote of the week and other stories making news this evening. Our weather forecast is up next. And that's our news, the weekend edition for this Sunday. I'm Andrew Knowles. For all of us here at our News, thank you so much for watching. Let's remember to be safe and look out for each other. Have a good night.